Hey, what's going on, Push Rodders? Welcome back. So, before we start our little series on our R34 Skyline Casper, I figure it'd be time. I really got to get stuck into a few service bits and pieces. Not really issues, but they'll become an issue, like timing belts and all that sort of stuff. So, I figure it'd be a good idea. Bring you guys along and just go through the motions of doing a timing belt on an R34 Skyline. Not this is a how-to video. Really, you should get yourself a workshop manual, for your make and model, and follow that. This is more just what to look out for and a general overview of what to be checking, that sort of thing. So, anyhow. It's always a good idea to keep your bolts sorted if you're, not quite sure what goes where, whatever, or take a video like we're doing now. These are a great little thing to have, the magnetic trays. So now, because sometimes the fan nuts or bolts or whatever can be a bit of a pain in the butt to undo, nice and tight or whatever it may be. What I've done is I've left the tension on the belt from the alternator. I haven't slackened it off. Just gives you a little bit more resistance to get them undone. Oh, gee. Taxi. I wish I had a ratchet spanner, 10mm ratchet spanner. Because like the sockets, they keep going bloody walkabout. Before we put this fan down, one thing to look out for, make sure you've got plenty of resistance for your viscous clutch here, and also to look for, if you've got it doesn't matter, steel, plastic, look for any cracks, deterioration, blades missing, whatever it may be. Now, as with any transmission lines, you can chuck a bolt in there with a clamp in the hose to stop it leaking, or try and, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to fold out the way like that so it doesn't leak. Focus. There you go. It's one of the things to check for. Your belt, pretty old and crusty, so they may look good on the outside, but so they're no good. Also too, just look out on your pulleys for the holes have been flogged out, if they've been loose or over tightened, and just any rubbish in the serpentine grooves there, all that sort of thing. Also, a build up of dirt too could possibly unbalance the pulley too. And another thing too, mark, that's a cam sensor, timing sensor, what do you want to call it, so you can advance or retard the timing on the exhaust cam, look at it. So we shall put a mark on it. Anything you don't know, like hoses, all that sort of stuff, put, say, 1 and 1 or something like that. if you haven't already, invest in a little battery ratchet and a little impact driver like that. So good. Makes life a hell of a lot easier. And quicker too. If you haven't already seen it, go back through the other videos that I've done, and there's a little review of those particular tools. Probably could have done a little bit more in depth on them, but you'll get the gist pretty well. Now, there we go. Alrighty. Sorry, my mistake before. Pretty much crank angle sensor, which was that piece that I took off first. That's your cam phasing or your variable valve timing little doodad on. Okay, so now we've got the balancer off. Just have a look at the rubber. I think they call it a elastomold or something like that. Looking for any, you know, serious perishing and like chunks missing, or you know, like the outer ring here is moved on the hub because it's virtually glued together with the rubber. Also too, have a look around our keyway slot here, any burrs, that sort of deal. Have a look at our pulleys themselves, make sure there's no bits missing, you know, cracked and bits of junk stuck in all the grooves. And before we put it back on, I'll most likely show you, but we'll clean up the taper part where the keyway is. Okay, now we've got the key here. It's one thing we don't want to lose. We need a very small hammer and punch. Now that little piece there, that's what stops the, as well as the taper a little bit, but that's what stops the harmonic balancer spinning on the nose of the crankshaft. So yeah, don't lose that if your vehicle has one. Another thing too, we'll just check around for any rust or any of that sort of stuff, and we'll give that nose of the crank a good clean up before everything else goes back on. Okay, now we can see where we're at. Now it's sort of recommended that you change the water pump and the tension idler pulleys when you do a belt, but yeah, finances haven't been that crash hot of late, so I'm making the call. We'll if the stuff's up, well, I'm back here again doing this, but fingers crossed it should be alright. So but even still, we'll check the water pump, make sure that spins freely. We've got no leaks, even around here. We'll make sure no leaks. When we release the tension off of this, we'll have a quick look at the pulleys, make sure the bearings are all right, and yeah, we'll slip on this new timing belt. Now, these are pretty forgiving little motors, these, so just be careful. And yeah, it's showing signs of wear. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, just be careful not to turn the crankshaft and leave it as is. Like, there's some engines that you're meant to, well, I suppose you should really do it on all engines, but to pre-time to whatever the workshop manual says, so it might be top dead center, or it might be number 1 firing, or number, say for instance, number 3 top dead center, whatever it may be. So anyhow, let's grab our new belt. We've got our timing belt in, tensioned up. One thing we did do off camera, because it went flat, or the phone went flat, is we turned the engine over by hand, just with the breaker bar and socket on the balancer bolt, just to make sure everything won't hit and bind and all that sort of stuff, and everything's mint. So yeah, it's pretty much the reverse now of putting everything back together, what you saw me take apart. So I'm not going to bore you with that, even if we put it on warp speed. So I'll get back to you when it's all complete. Okay guys, so probably a few other little things I probably should mention. Balancer bolt, you know, wire brush, clean up the threads, yeah, torque the bolt to spec, and if you really get antsy, maybe a little bit of medium Loctite on there, just as a bit of added insurance. So alrighty, push rodders, well, after 1 step forward, 2 steps back, because of my stupid fault, I over tightened the cam belt, so it sounded like it had a good old Gilmer belt drive on it. So it all had to come back apart again. Just a quick tip for you, for all of you really, don't do stuff when you're half tired and asleep, like I was. But anyway, so I'll let this run up. We've got the heater going, so we've got coolant circulation. We'll check for any leaks. We'll put about 1 litre of coolant in. Another top tip coolant wise is read the instructions for on the whatever coolant package, or coolant brand I should say, you're using on the packaging. Usually it's roughly 1 litre to however many litres of water. So this system takes around about, I think about 8 litres, 10 litres or something, so I've put about a litre of coolant in. If you put too much coolant in, it actually holds the heat, it traps the heat in the engine, where you want to dissipate it through the radiator. So alrighty, push rodders, well, we've just been for the test drive. We've rechecked for any leaks. Everything's sweet as, so job done. Well, that job anyway. So yeah, it's pretty much, it's just all the little things when you're doing jobs like this, you know, check all the little bits and pieces. And it goes without saying, you know, follow your workshop manual for the procedure to do and undo and all the rest of it, whatever particular job you're doing, in this case a timing belt. So look, I was hoping to have a video started or at least done on Caspar, start modifying it, but I think I'm going to leave that a little bit later, probably maybe another 1 or 2 videos down the track. So I just wanted to get everything checked over and buttoned up on Caspar first before we go modifying. So I think next video we'll probably end up doing something like a just checking the vehicle over, doing a health check on the engine, you know, all that sort of thing, like compression test, pressure test the cooling system, and you know, just all the little bits and pieces. So and it looks like we've got a little audience. Say hi. Hello. Oh well, so we've got our little audience. Anyway, what are you waiting for? Go get your hands dirty. I'll see you next video.